For 3,000 years, the Sentinel stood silent in the frozen wastes of Europa, its creators long vanished into the cosmic dark. Every species that discovered it tried to wake the ancient machine. The Zavrathi brought their quantum processors. The Milux offered songs of pure mathematics. The Corfins threatened it with antimatter weapons. Each attempt ended the same way. Nothing. Silence. A dead god refusing resurrection. Then, humanity found it. And Dr. Marcus Webb did something nobody else had thought to try. Something so simple, so fundamentally human, that when the Sentinel's eyes finally blazed to life after millennia of darkness, its first words would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. You are not what we expected. The ice storm on Europa was getting worse. Marcus could barely see 3 meters ahead through his helmet's display as he trudged through the methane snow toward the excavation site. His breath came in short bursts, fogging the inside of his visor despite the anti-condensation coating. Behind him, the rest of his team had taken shelter in the habitat modules, but Marcus couldn't stop now. Not when he was so close. Marcus, your oxygen is at 30%. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice crackled through the comm system. You need to turn back. 5 more minutes? Marcus said, his eyes fixed on the massive obsidian structure looming ahead. Even through the storm, the Sentinel was impossible to miss. It stood 20 meters tall, vaguely humanoid but wrong in ways that made human eyes hurt to look at it directly. Its surface wasn't just black, it was the absence of light, like someone had cut a hole in reality itself. You said that 20 minutes ago, Sarah replied, her voice tight with concern. The storm's only getting worse. Whatever you're planning can wait. Marcus stopped at the base of the Sentinel, his gloved hand reaching out to touch the surface. It was cold, far colder than the surrounding ice. The material drank heat from everything around it. 3 years they'd been studying this thing. 3 years of scans, analysis, and attempts to communicate with it. The Galactic Council had sent their best experts. Nothing worked. The Sentinel remained stubbornly dead. It's been waiting 3,000 years, Marcus said softly. I think it can wait another day. You're right. I'm coming back. But as he turned to leave, something caught his eye. A small panel near the base of the structure, partially obscured by ice. He'd walked past it 100 times, but the shifting stormlight hit it differently now, revealing geometric patterns he hadn't noticed before. They looked almost like handprints. Marcus knelt down, his breath quickening. The patterns were definitely designed for biological hands, but they were strange. Too many fingers. Angles, all wrong. He pulled out his scanner and ran it over the panel. Sarah, are you seeing this? Marcus, your feed is breaking up. The scanner beeped. The panel wasn't made of the same material as the rest of the Sentinel. It was older, much older, and it was organic, or had been once. The readings were showing traces of carbon, silicon, and something else the scanner couldn't identify. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He'd placed his hand on the panel. Marcus, what are you doing? Sarah's voice was sharp now. We don't know what that. The panel lit up, not with light exactly, but with something that made light seem dull and lifeless by comparison. Marcus felt his hand sink into the surface like it was pushing through warm water. Images flooded his mind. Not words, not pictures, but pure understanding. He saw civilizations rising and falling, wars that spanned galaxies. And at the center of it all, a species that built the Sentinel, the architects. They were gone now, dead for longer than humanity had existed. But they'd left instructions, encrypted into the very fabric of the Sentinel's being. Instructions that required one specific thing to activate. A living consciousness willing to connect. Every other species had tried to hack the Sentinel, to force it online, to command it. But the architects had designed it differently. They'd made it so only a species that approached with genuine curiosity, willing to touch the unknown without fully understanding it, could wake it up. The panel was a test, a filter, and humanity, in its reckless curiosity, had just passed. Marcus gasped as the connection broke. He fell backward into the ice, his oxygen alarm screaming in his ear. The Sentinel made a sound like grinding planets. Deep in its core, systems that had been dormant for millennia began to wake. Marcus! Sarah was shouting now. The readings just went insane! Whatever you did, the power signature from that thing just increased by a factor of 10,000. We're evacuating the site. Marcus tried to respond, but his vision was swimming. His oxygen was almost gone. He'd been out too long. He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. The ice beneath him was vibrating now, chunks of frozen methane jumping like water on a drum. The Sentinel moved. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. The massive head turned, joints that hadn't moved in 3,000 years grinding through accumulated ice. Two eyes, each the size of a human torso, ignited with light that seemed to come from somewhere beyond normal space. They fixed on Marcus. And the Sentinel spoke. But it didn't speak in words, not at first. It spoke in data, pouring directly into Marcus's mind through the neural link his helmet provided. Terabytes of information in seconds. History, purpose, warnings. The architects had built the Sentinel as a guardian, placed here to watch for something, to wait for something. But what? Then words came, translated through the Sentinel's ancient databases into something approximating human language. Biological entity detected. Species unknown. Classification, insufficient data. Initiating evaluation protocol. Marcus's team was shouting over the comm now, their voices overlapping in panic. He could hear the roar of their transport vehicles starting up, ready to evacuate. But Marcus couldn't move. The Sentinel's gaze held him frozen. Not physically, but with the sheer weight of attention. He felt like an ant being examined by a human scientist. Wait, Marcus gasped. His oxygen at 5%? We're human. We didn't mean to intrude. We just wanted to understand. The Sentinel tilted its head, a motion so mechanical and yet so organic that it sent shivers down Marcus's spine. Its eyes blazed brighter, scanning him in ways that made his skin crawl. Human. The Sentinel repeated, the word distorted and strange in its synthetic voice. Checking databases. Warning. Database corruption detected. Architect species classification incomplete. Cross-referencing available data. In that moment, Marcus's oxygen hit zero. His vision started to darken at the edges. He was going to die here, on the ice of Europa, at the feet of an ancient machine he'd just woken up. At least he'd succeeded. At least he'd finally gotten it to respond. Then the Sentinel did something no one expected. It knelt. The motion was so sudden and so precise that it sent a shockwave through the ice, cracking the surface in a perfect circle around them. One massive hand reached down, impossibly gentle for something so large, and scooped Marcus up. He felt warmth for the first time in hours as the Sentinel's palm cradled him. And somehow, impossibly, he could breathe again. The Sentinel was generating an atmosphere around him, oxygen and nitrogen in perfect proportions. Analysis complete, the Sentinel said, its voice different now. Softer. Almost surprised? Species designation, human. Evolution pattern, architect baseline. Genetic markers, confirmed. Status designation, protected. Marcus's team had gone silent on the comms. Through his clearing vision, he could see the transport vehicle sitting motionless in the ice, its lights pointed at the Sentinel and him. I don't understand, Marcus whispered. Protected? We don't have any connection to your creators. The Sentinel's eyes dimmed slightly. A gesture Marcus would later learn indicated deep processing. When it spoke again, its voice carried something that sounded almost like emotion. You are the continuation. You are what the architects hoped would emerge. They seeded your world 4 billion years ago, before the war, before the fall. They encoded their genetic legacy into primordial organisms, hoping that one day, in some distant future, their children would rise from those simple cells. Marcus felt his mind struggling to comprehend what he was hearing. You're saying humans are descended from your creators? And no, you are not them. You are something they became. Evolution guided by their initial pattern, but shaped by your world, your struggles, your choices. You are both less and more than they were. The Sentinel stood, Marcus still cradled in its palm, and turned to face the habitat modules where his team watched in stunned silence. The architects are gone, the Sentinel continued. Dead in a war so ancient that its causes are lost even to my records. But their final act was to ensure their legacy would survive. They created the Sentinels, placed us on worlds throughout the galaxy, and programmed us with one command. Wait, watch, protect. When the children of the architects finally reached the stars, we would be here. But other species have been here, Marcus said. his scientific mind engaging despite the impossible situation. The Galactic Council has known about you for decades. Why didn't you activate for them? They tried to command me. They tried to force compliance. They approached as conquerors seeking a tool. The Sentinel's eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made him feel seen in a way he'd never experienced before. You touch the interface with curiosity, with wonder, with the willingness to connect without understanding. That is the marker. That is the architect way. That is how I know you are their children. Marcus heard Sarah's voice, shaky but clear. Marcus, are you okay? What is it saying? It's saying, Marcus replied slowly, that we just changed everything. The Sentinel began to move, each step sending tremors through the ice. It was walking toward the human habitat, still cradling Marcus in its palm like a precious treasure. As they moved, Marcus noticed something. The storm was dying down. No, not dying, being pushed back. The Sentinel was generating some kind of field that was parting the methane snow like water around a ship's bow. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now, the Sentinel said, I fulfill my purpose. I have waited 3,000 years for this moment. The architects program me with knowledge, with technology, with gifts to bestow upon their children when they finally reached me. But they also program me with discretion. I must determine if you are ready. Ready for what? For the inheritance, for the truth about the galaxy, for the burden of knowing why the architects fell, and what still hunts in the dark places between stars. The Sentinel stopped at the edge of the habitat complex. Its eyes swept across the collection of modules, the equipment, the gathered humans who were now emerging cautiously to witness this impossible scene. Your species is young, the Sentinel observed. Barely off your homeworld, you still war with each other. You still struggle with the concept of unity. But you have something the architects lost in their final days. Something I see in your touch, in your approach to the unknown. What's that? Marcus asked. Hope, the Sentinel said simply. Raw, uncalculated hope. The architects became too wise, too cautious, too afraid of what they'd learned lurked in the cosmic dark. It paralyzed them. But you reach out anyway. You touch the unknown panel despite the risk. You ask questions even when the answers might destroy you. That is both your greatest weakness and your greatest strength. The Sentinel lowered its hand, gently depositing Marcus on the ice near his team. Sarah rushed forward, grabbing him, checking his vital signs even as she stared up at the massive machine in awe. I will share the architect's gifts with you, the Sentinel announced, its voice now broadcasting on all frequencies so every human on Europa could hear. But there is a condition. Marcus struggled to his feet, supported by Sarah. What condition? The knowledge I carry is dangerous. The technology can elevate your species or destroy it. The architect's history contains lessons that could save you or doom you to repeat their mistakes. I will provide all of it, but you must prove one thing to me first. The Sentinel's eyes blazed brighter, and Marcus realized with a chill that this machine was more than just an artifact. It was a judge, an examiner, and humanity was on trial. Prove to me, the Sentinel said, that you can change, that you can grow beyond your current limitations. The architects failed because they could not adapt, could not let go of old ways even when those ways led to extinction. Show me that humanity is different. Show me that the hope I see in you is not merely naive optimism, but genuine potential for transformation. Marcus exchanged glances with Sarah and the rest of his team. How do you prove an entire species can change? How do you demonstrate potential for transformation to a machine that had watched civilizations rise and fall for 3,000 years? How much time do we have? Marcus asked. The Sentinel considered this. I am patient. I have already waited 3,000 years. I can wait more. But the galaxy will not wait. There are powers moving in the dark, ancient enemies of the architects who will eventually notice that I have awakened. When they come, you must be ready, or you will die, and the architect's legacy will die with you. How long? Marcus pressed. How long until they come? Unknown. It could be years. It could be days. The moment I activated, I sent signals across quantum channels that have been silent for millennia. Old watchers will notice. Old hunters will wake from their slumber. The countdown has already begun. The Sentinel turned, its massive form casting long shadows across the ice. I will remain here. I will observe. And when you have shown me that humanity can be more than what you currently are, I will give you everything the architects left behind. Their knowledge, their technology, their warnings about what lurks in the deep dark. It took one step away, then paused and looked back at Marcus. Marcus Webb, for waking me. For 3,000 years I stood alone in the dark, waiting for a purpose that I feared might never come. You have given me that purpose. Now I give you yours. Save your species. Prove worthy of your inheritance. Become what the architects hoped you would be. With that, the sentinel walked away into the thinning storm, its footsteps shaking the world beneath their feet. Marcus watched it go, his mind reeling from everything that had just happened. They'd woken an ancient guardian. They'd learned humanity was connected to an extinct alien species, and they'd just been given an ultimatum that would determine the fate of their entire civilization. Sarah squeezed his shoulder. Marcus, what did we just unleash? Marcus couldn't look away from the sentinel's retreating form. Either our salvation, he said quietly, or our extinction. I guess we're about to find out which. The emergency session of the United Earth Council was chaotic. Marcus watched from the gallery as representatives from every nation shouted over each other, their voices echoing through the chamber in Geneva. On the massive screen behind them, the Sentinel stood motionless on Europa's surface, a dark monument that had thrown humanity into turmoil. This is clearly a first contact situation. Ambassador Kenji Tanaka from the Pacific Coalition was saying, we need to follow established protocols. Quarantine the site. Limit information dispersal until we understand the full implications. Limit information. Dr. Amara Okafor from the African Union stood, her voice cutting through the noise. The entire galaxy already knows. The Galactic Council has been demanding answers for 3 days. We can't hide this even if we wanted to. Marcus felt Sarah slide into the seat beside him. She'd been called to testify about the activation event, though Marcus had already spent 12 hours being questioned by everyone from military intelligence to xenobiologists. How are you holding up? She asked quietly. I keep thinking about what it said, Marcus replied, about proving we can change. How do you prove something like that to a machine that's been watching civilizations for thousands of years? Sarah didn't answer. On the floor below, the debate was intensifying. We should weaponize it, General Morrison from North American Defense was saying. If what Dr. Webb says is true, if there are ancient enemies coming, we need every advantage. That machine could be our greatest asset, or our greatest threat, countered Dr. Lu Wei from the Asian Scientific Cooperative. We don't understand its full capabilities. For all we know, it could decide we've failed its test and eliminate us itself. Ambassador Kenji raised his hand for silence. Webb's report indicated the Sentinel was designed to protect humanity, not destroy us. We're getting ahead of ourselves. The immediate question is, what does it mean by asking us to prove we can change? Marcus found himself standing without meaning to. His voice carried in a sudden quiet. It wants to see if we can overcome our base nature. The architects fell because they couldn't adapt. They grew too rigid, too set in their ways. The Sentinel is watching to see if we'll make the same mistakes. All eyes in the chamber turned to him. And how exactly are we supposed to demonstrate that? General Morrison demanded. Put on a show? Stage some kind of planetary unity performance? No, Marcus said, making his way down to the floor. We just have to actually do it, actually change, actually become better than we are. You're being naive, the general shot back. Humanity has been at war with itself since the beginning. You expect us to suddenly achieve world peace because some alien machine told us to? I expect us to try, Marcus replied, his voice firm. Because the alternative is extinction. The chamber erupted in argument again, but Marcus barely heard it. His tablet was buzzing, a priority message from the Europa station. He opened it and felt his blood run cold. We have a problem, he announced loudly, cutting through the noise. The Galactic Council has dispatched a battle fleet to Europa. They're claiming jurisdiction over the Sentinel. ETA, 18 hours. The chamber went silent. They can't do that, Ambassador Kenji said, his voice tight. Europa is human territory under the Outer System Treaty. They're citing precedent, Marcus read from the message. Ancient technology falls under Council oversight. They're claiming we don't have the authority or capability to secure such a dangerous artifact. In other words, Sarah said quietly beside him, they're scared. They had decades to activate the Sentinel. and failed. Now we've succeeded, and they want to take it away from us. General Morrison was already on his feet. How many ships? 47, Marcus read, including 3 dreadnoughts. We have 6 defensive platforms around Jupiter and maybe 20 patrol vessels, the general said grimly. We can't stop them militarily. Then we don't stop them with military force, Dr. Okafor said. We negotiate. We explain the situation. Surely they'll understand that the Sentinels specifically activated for humanity. Marcus shook his head. You don't understand the Council. They rule through control of technology. They ration access to advanced systems, keep younger species dependent on them. If humanity suddenly has access to architect-level technology without going through them, it threatens their entire power structure. Canyon. So what do we do? Ambassador Kenji asked. Before anyone could answer, every screen in the chamber went black. Then they lit up again, showing the Sentinel's face in extreme close-up. Its eyes blazed with cold fire. I have been monitoring your communications. The Sentinel's voice boomed through every speaker. The approaching fleet represents a threat to my primary directive. I will not allow interference with humanity's evaluation. General Morrison recovered first. What will you do? I will defend this position. Any vessel that attempts to approach within weapons range will be eliminated. The chamber exploded in panic. Marcus felt his heart hammering. The Sentinel was offering to start an interstellar war on humanity's behalf. Wait, Marcus shouted. That's exactly what you don't want from us. Violence, aggression, inability to find peaceful solutions. If you destroy that fleet, you prove that we're the same as the architects, that we solve our problems through force. The Sentinel's eyes fixed on Marcus through the screen. You would allow them to take what is yours if... to deny your species its inheritance? I would find another way, Marcus said desperately. There has to be another way. That's the point, isn't it? That's the test. Not whether we can fight, but whether we can transcend the need to fight. Silence. The Sentinel's gaze was impossible to read. Interesting, it finally said. You understand the nature of the evaluation better than I anticipated. Very well. I will not initiate violence, but I will not surrender control of Architect Legacy either. You have 18 hours to find your other way, Dr. Webb. I suggest you use them wisely. The screens went black again. Marcus found himself the center of attention, dozens of faces staring at him with a mixture of hope and accusation. Well, General Morrison said, you just talked a living weapon out of protecting us. Now what's your plan? 18 hours. A Galactic Council fleet that outgunned them 100 to 1. A Sentinel that was testing their ability to solve problems without violence. And the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. We do what humans do best, Marcus said slowly. An idea forming. We improvise. We adapt. We survive. Sarah, I need you to compile everything we know about Architect civilization. Everything. Dr. Okafor, I need a direct channel to the Council fleet. Ambassador Kenji, I need you to stall them. Buy us as much time as you can. General Morrison, I need your tactical people to run simulations. Not for fighting, but for evacuation. If this goes wrong, we need to get every human off Europa. And what will you be doing? The ambassador asked. I'm going back to Europa, Marcus said. I'm going to talk to the Sentinel. Really talk to it. Because I think I know what it wants to see from us. And if I'm right, we have one chance to prove it. 16 hours later, Marcus stood alone on the ice of Europa again. The Council fleet was visible now. A constellation of lights in Jupiter's shadow. Sensor readings showed they were powering weapons, preparing for whatever resistance they might face. The Sentinel stood exactly where it had been, unmoving, but Marcus knew it was aware of everything happening around it. I've figured it out, Marcus called out to the massive machine. What you're really testing. The Sentinel's head turned slowly to face him. Explain. The architects fell because they saw every problem as a binary choice. Fight or flee. Control or be controlled. Destroy or be destroyed. That's what led to their war, isn't it? Some threat appeared, and instead of finding a third option, they chose violence, and it consumed them. The Sentinel was silent, but its eyes brightened slightly. Marcus took that as encouragement. You're not testing whether we can achieve peace. You're testing whether we can think beyond the limitations that destroyed your creators, whether we can see options they couldn't see. And have you found such an option? The Sentinel asked. Yes, Marcus said. but it requires your help. And it requires you to trust us just like you're asking us to prove we're trustworthy. Explain your plan. Marcus took a deep breath. The council is coming because they're afraid. They're afraid of losing control. Afraid of what architect technology could do in young species' hands. Afraid of the unknown. The architects had the same fears. Those fears killed them. True. Continue. So we don't fight them, and we don't surrender to them. We do something neither of those options allows for. We share. We offer to work with the council, to study the architect legacy together, to build something new instead of fighting over the old. The Sentinel tilted its head. They will refuse. They will see it as weakness. They will demand full control. They might, Marcus agreed. But that's where you come in. You have access to architect knowledge. You know things about the galaxy that even the council doesn't know. Things they need to know. You said there are enemies in the dark. Ancient things that hunted the architects. The council needs to hear about those threats. And you need to tell them. And if they still demand control after hearing the truth, then you make them a counteroffer. You activate other Sentinels. You said the architects placed guardians on multiple worlds, right? Activate them all, simultaneously, across the entire galaxy. Suddenly, it's not about control anymore. It's about whether the council wants to be allies in facing what's coming, or enemies fighting over scraps while the real threat grows stronger. The Sentinel was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could almost feel it processing, running scenarios, evaluating possibilities. This plan requires me to reveal information that could destabilize galactic civilization, the Sentinel finally said. The truth about what lurks beyond known space is disturbing. The architects tried to hide from that truth, Marcus said. They probably tried to control the information to protect younger species from knowing, and it didn't save them. Maybe what we need isn't protection from the truth. Maybe we need to face it together. The Sentinel's eyes blazed brighter. You would risk panic, chaos, and potential collapse of galactic order rather than fight this fleet? I would risk those things to avoid proving that humanity's answer to every challenge is violence, Marcus replied. Because if that's who we are, then we don't deserve the architect's legacy anyway. Marcus's tablet showed incoming transmissions, demands for surrender, warnings of imminent military action. Time is up, the Sentinel said. Choose now. Do I engage the fleet, or do we attempt your plan? Marcus thought about humanity, about all the times throughout history when they'd chosen violence over understanding, war over diplomacy, destruction over creation. But he also thought about all the times they'd surprised themselves, overcome impossible odds, found ways to cooperate despite their differences. We try my plan, Marcus said firmly. We prove we're better than our worst impulses. The Sentinel's eyes flared. Then, without warning, it broadcast on every frequency known to galactic civilization. Attention Council Fleet, this is Sentinel Unit 7. I am broadcasting an emergency warning. The information I am about to share is classified at Architect Level Omega. All species, all worlds, all civilizations need to hear this. Marcus's tablet lit up with thousands of incoming signals. Every ship in the fleet was receiving the broadcast. So was every council world. Every space station, every colony. The Sentinel wasn't just talking to the fleet anymore. It was addressing the entire galaxy. The architects did not fall because of internal conflict, the Sentinel continued. They fell because of an external threat, an entity that exists beyond conventional space. We called it the Silence. It consumes civilizations, leaves nothing behind but empty worlds and dead systems. The architects fought it for 1,000 years. They lost. The transmissions on Marcus's tablet had gone from demands to shocked silence. The silence operates on a cycle, the Sentinel continued. It feeds, then sleeps, then wakes to feed again. The architects calculated its pattern. It is waking now. In approximately 200 years, it will return to this galaxy. When it does, every species, every world, every living thing will face the same choice the architects faced. Unite and fight together, or die separately. Marcus watched as his screen filled with incoming communications, not just from the fleet anymore, but from council worlds, independent systems, even from isolated colonies on the edge of known space. Everyone was listening. I was placed here to wait for the architect's children, the Sentinel said. To test them, to prepare them, to determine if they were ready to lead the galaxy in the coming war. Humanity has passed the first test. They chose understanding over violence, cooperation over control. Now I offer the same choice to all species. Will you fight over the Architect's legacy, or will you unite to face the silence together? The broadcast ended. The ice around Marcus crackled with sudden silence. His tablet showed the Council fleet had stopped powering weapons. Their formation was breaking up, ships pulling back to defensive positions instead of attack vectors. Transmissions were flooding in from their command vessel, requesting direct communication with both humanity and the Sentinel. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "You did it," he said to the Sentinel. "You told them the truth." "We did it," the Sentinel corrected. "You showed me that sometimes the right choice is not to fight and not to flee, but to trust, to share, to build bridges instead of walls. That is what the Architects forgot in their final days. That is what I needed to see from you." The massive machine knelt down, bringing its face level with Marcus. "You have proven worthy, Dr. Marcus Webb. Your species has demonstrated the capacity for growth that the Architects lost. I will now fulfill my purpose. I will share the inheritance, all of it. The knowledge, the technology, the warnings and the weapons needed to face what is coming." Marcus felt a surge of triumph, but it was mixed with fear. "And the other species? The Council? They will have to earn it," the Sentinel said, "just as you did. Each species will face their own evaluation. Some will pass, some will fail. But now at least they know what they're facing. They know what's coming. They have time to prepare, time to change, time to become more than they currently are." 200 years, Marcus said quietly. "It seems like a long time." "It is not," the Sentinel replied. "The Architects had twice that long. It was not enough. But perhaps with unity, with cooperation, with the willingness to change that you have demonstrated, it will be enough for you, for all of you." The Sentinel stood, its massive form silhouetted against Jupiter's glow. "Come, Dr. Webb, let us begin. Your species has much to learn, and the galaxy has little time to waste. The silence is coming, and we must be ready." Marcus followed the Sentinel toward the excavation site, his mind reeling with possibilities and fears. Behind him, more transports were landing. Scientists from every nation, observers from the Council, representatives from dozens of species, all coming to witness this moment. Humanity had woken an ancient guardian. They'd passed its test. Now they would inherit the knowledge of a fallen civilization and the burden of defending the galaxy against a threat beyond comprehension. As Marcus walked, he couldn't help but wonder if they were ready, if anyone was ready. 200 years seemed like forever, and no time at all. But then he remembered what made humanity special. Not their strength or their intelligence or their technology, their ability to hope, to adapt, to face impossible odds and find a way through anyway. The Sentinel had seen that in them, had chosen them for it. Now they just had to prove it wasn't a mistake. 6 months after the Sentinel's awakening, the galaxy looked different. Not physically, but in ways that mattered more. Marcus stood in the observation deck of the new Unity station, watching construction crews from 17 different species working together to build humanity's first true interstellar research facility. It orbited Europa like a metal moon, already 3 times the size of any previous human construction. "Still can't believe this is real sometimes," Sarah said, joining him at the viewport. She'd been appointed as co-director of the Architect Legacy Project, working alongside representatives from the Galactic Council. 6 months ago we were barely tolerated in Council space. Now we're hosting the largest collaborative research initiative in galactic history." Marcus smiled. Fear is a powerful motivator. Once the Sentinel told everyone about the silence, suddenly our little backwater system became the most important place in the galaxy. "It's more than fear," Sarah countered. "You saw the reports. 17 other Sentinels have activated across known space. Each one is evaluating its local species, offering the same choice we got. Fight or cooperate, hoard or share, stagnate or grow." "How many have passed the evaluation?" Sarah's expression grew somber. "Including us. The Zavrathi refused to share their activation data. The Corthans tried to weaponize their Sentinel. Both times, the Sentinels shut down and went dormant again. They're not giving second chances." Marcus felt a chill despite the station's climate control. The stakes were becoming clearer every day. The galaxy had 200 years to prepare for the silence, but they wouldn't get those 200 years of preparation unless they could prove they deserved it. The Sentinels weren't just offering help, they were conducting the largest evaluation in galactic history. Dr. Webb, a young technician, appeared at his elbow, her scales marking her as Telrani. The Sentinel is requesting your presence at the primary interface chamber. It says the download is ready. Marcus and Sarah exchanged glances. The download. For 6 months, the Sentinel had been preparing humanity to receive the Architect's full database. Not just technology or weapons, but everything. Their entire civilization's collected knowledge, spanning millions of years. The equivalent of all human knowledge multiplied by 1,000. Is it just me, or does it feel like we're about to get hit by a fire hose? Sarah asked as they made their way through the station's corridors. More like a tidal wave, Marcus replied. The Sentinel warned us. The information alone could destabilize our entire understanding of physics, biology, consciousness. We're about to learn things that might make us wish we'd stayed ignorant. They entered the interface chamber, a massive spherical room lined with quantum processors and neural interface equipment. At the center floated a representation of the Sentinel, a holographic avatar it had created for easier communication. It looked almost human, deliberately designed to be less intimidating than its true form. Dr. Webb, Dr. Chen. Thank you for coming. The avatar's voice was measured, calm. The preparation phase is complete. I am ready to transfer the Architect database to human custody. However, I must first ensure you understand what you are about to receive. Marcus nodded. We've been briefed. The information is extensive. Extensive does not capture the scope, the Sentinel replied. The Architects were the first species to achieve technological transcendence in this galaxy. They had 9 million years to accumulate knowledge before their fall. What I am about to give you represents the wisdom and mistakes of an entire epoch of galactic history. The avatar gestured, and the chamber filled with images. Vast cities spanning entire planets. Megastructures that made human engineering look like children's toys. Weapons that could crack worlds. And among it all, the Architects themselves. A species that looked disturbingly human in some ways and utterly alien in others. They mapped every star system in this galaxy, the Sentinel continued. They catalogued every species, every world capable of supporting life. They created the hyperlane network that connects the galaxy. They seeded hundreds of worlds with the building blocks of life, including Earth. They achieved things your species won't achieve for 1 million years, if ever. And then they died, Marcus said quietly. All of it. All that knowledge and power couldn't save them from the silence. Correct. The avatar's expression was unreadable. This is the critical lesson you must understand before receiving their legacy. The Architects believed that sufficient knowledge and power could solve any problem. They were wrong. Some problems cannot be solved through accumulation of information or technology. Some problems require something else. Change, Sarah said. The ability to become something you weren't before. Yes. The avatar smiled, a strange expression on its artificial face. The Architects could not change. They became trapped by their own success, their own accumulated knowledge. Every solution they tried had already been tried and had failed. They could not conceive of new approaches because they had already explored every approach their philosophy allowed. The silence exploited that rigidity. It adapted faster than they could respond. Marcus felt his heart racing. So why give us their knowledge? Won't we fall into the same trap? Perhaps, the Sentinel admitted. That is the risk. The Architects believed that by seeding younger species, by encoding their genetic legacy into primitive life, they could create successors who retained their potential but lacked their fatal flaw. You are that experiment, Dr. Webb. You and every species the Architects touched. The avatar moved closer, its holographic eyes fixed on Marcus with unsettling intensity. You have already demonstrated something the Architects could not. When faced with the Council fleet, you chose an option that was not fight or flee. When given the choice between hoarding knowledge or sharing it, you chose to share. When the easiest path was violence, you found another way. That is the change. That is the growth. That is what gives me hope that you might succeed where the Architects failed. But it's not just about humanity, is it? Sarah asked. You're evaluating every species in the galaxy, testing them all. Correct. The silence cannot be defeated by one species, no matter how advanced. The Architects tried. They failed. The only hope is unified action. Every species working together, combining their unique strengths, covering each other's weaknesses. But unity requires trust, and trust requires proving you are worthy of it. The Avatar swept its hand across the chamber, and new images appeared. Dozens of alien species, some familiar from Council space, others completely unknown. 17 species have been offered the evaluation. 3 have passed. 14 are still being tested. The clock is counting down. Dr. Webb, in 196 years, the silence will return. We need every species ready by then. United, prepared, changed. Marcus took a deep breath. Then let's begin. Transfer the database. Show us what the architects knew. Help us become what they couldn't. The Sentinel's avatar nodded. Very well, but understand, once this transfer begins, there is no going back. Your species will be forever changed by this knowledge. Your civilization will never be the same. Are you certain? Then he looked around the chamber at the gathered scientists and observers, humans and aliens working side by side for the first time in history. We're certain, he said. Show us. The transfer took 3 days. Marcus and Sarah were the primary receivers. Their neural interfaces upgraded with architect-level technology to handle the data flow. But they weren't alone. Dozens of other humans and alien scientists participated, each receiving portions of the database tailored to their expertise. Marcus experienced it as a waking dream. Information poured into his consciousness faster than thought. He saw the rise of the architects from primitive hunter-gatherers to masters of space and time. He watched as they spread across the galaxy, encountering and uplifting hundreds of younger species. He witnessed their golden age, when peace and prosperity seemed eternal. And then he saw the darkness. The silence didn't come from within the galaxy. It came from between galaxies, from the vast empty spaces where light itself grew thin. The architects first detected it when entire star clusters went dark without explanation. No explosions, no debris, just absence, as if reality itself had been erased. They sent ships to investigate. None returned. They sent probes with quantum communication links. The links went silent. They built weapons, vast engines of destruction powered by stars themselves. The weapons had no effect, because the silence wasn't a species or an empire or even a physical phenomenon. It was something else, something the architects had no framework to understand. It existed in the spaces between normal matter, in the quantum foam beneath reality. It fed on complexity, on information, on life itself. And it was patient. It had consumed 1,000 galaxies before arriving at this one. It would consume 1,000 more after. The architects fought for a millennium. They threw everything they had at the silence. Advanced technology, reality-warping weapons, attempts to communicate, attempts to flee. Nothing worked. The silence adapted to every strategy, countered every tactic, consumed every defense. In their final days, the architects understood their mistake. They had approached the silence as a problem to be solved, an enemy to be defeated. But the silence wasn't an enemy. It was a force of nature, like entropy or gravity. You don't defeat gravity. You adapt to it. You work with it. You become something that can exist alongside it. But by then, it was too late for the architects. They were too invested in their old ways, too rigid in their thinking. So they created the Sentinels, seeded younger species across the galaxy, and hoped that one of those species would succeed where they had failed. When Marcus finally emerged from the transfer, he felt different. The knowledge sat in his mind like a second set of memories, vast and ancient and terrible. He could see now why the Sentinel had worried about giving this to humanity. The sheer weight of architect history could crush a civilization under its burden. But humanity had something the architects didn't, something the Sentinel had recognized and valued: the ability to remain hopeful even when all logic suggested despair, the willingness to try new approaches even when old wisdom said they would fail. Sarah found him in the observation deck again, staring out at the stars. She looked as shaken as he felt. I saw it, she said quietly. The end of the architects. It was horrible. They couldn't let go, Marcus said. That's what killed them. They had 9 million years of success, 9 million years of their methods working. They couldn't conceive that those methods might be wrong for this particular challenge. And we're supposed to do better with 200 years of preparation? We're supposed to try. Marcus turned to face her. That's the point, Sarah. The architects stopped trying new things. They became a civilization of experts, of people who knew all the answers. We're a civilization of amateurs, of people still figuring things out. That's our strength. Sarah managed a weak smile. Though our advantage against cosmic horror is that we're bad at this, our advantage is that we're not stuck yet. We're still growing, still changing, still capable of surprise. The silence adapts to patterns, to predictable behavior. The architects became too predictable. We need to stay unpredictable. How? Marcus looked out at the construction crews again. Humans and aliens working together on something unprecedented. By doing exactly what we're doing now. By building something new. Not replicating architect civilization, but creating our own. Using their knowledge as a foundation, but building our own structure on top of it. Something the silence has never encountered before. Over the following weeks, that philosophy shaped everything they did. Instead of simply copying architect technology, human engineers worked with alien counterparts to create hybrid systems that combined multiple approaches. Instead of studying architect battle tactics, military strategists focused on developing completely new forms of coordinated defense. The Sentinel watched it all with what Marcus came to recognize as approval. One day, 3 months after the knowledge transfer, the massive machine called him back to its physical location on Europa. "I have observed your progress," the Sentinel said. Its voice no longer cold and mechanical, but warm, with something that might have been pride. "You have done what the architects could not. You have taken their legacy and made it your own. You have not copied them. You have transcended them." Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. "So we passed? Humanity is worthy?" "Humanity is promising," the Sentinel corrected gently. "Worthiness is not a binary state. It is a continuous process. You must keep growing. Keep changing. Keep adapting. The moment you believe you have achieved perfection is the moment you begin to fail." "Then we'll keep trying," Marcus said. "We'll keep building, keep learning, keep changing. And when the silence comes, we'll face it not as copies of the architects, but as ourselves." The Sentinel's eyes blazed brighter. "That is all I could hope for. That is all the architects could have hoped for. You are their children, but you are not them. You are something new, something unexpected, something that might just survive." Marcus left Europa that day with a strange mix of emotions. Fear for what was coming, hope for what humanity might become, pride in what they'd already achieved, and determination to prove that the Sentinel's faith in them wasn't misplaced. As his shuttle lifted off, he looked back at the massive Guardian standing alone on the ice. It had waited 3,000 years for this moment, 3,000 years of silence and darkness, hoping that one day the architect's children would find it and prove themselves worthy. They had found it. And now, with 196 years remaining, they would use every second to prepare. Not to become the next architects, but to become the first humans. To face the impossible with creativity instead of certainty, with hope instead of calculation, with the audacity to believe that somehow, some way they would find an answer that had eluded a civilization 9 million years old. The silence was coming, but humanity would be ready. Not because they were the strongest, or the smartest, or the most advanced, but because they were the most human. And in the end, that might be enough. The shuttle broke atmosphere, and Marcus watched Europa shrink behind him, the Sentinel a small, dark mark on the ice. But he knew it was watching, waiting, guiding. A guardian left behind by a dead civilization, fulfilling its final purpose by helping a young species reach heights their creators never achieved. The galaxy had changed forever the day Marcus touched that panel and woke the ancient machine. Now it would change again as humanity took its place, not as masters or conquerors, but as something far more dangerous and far more valuable, as hope itself, walking among the stars.